Okay, so I want to tell you a story around culture, and particularly as it pertains to leadership teams. And so the story comes from a consulting colleague of mine. And he'd been asked to come in by the CEO to help the CEO develop his team, develop the culture of the team. And so my friend said, yeah, okay, sure. I can come in, I don't know how much I can help, what's going on with the team, but I'll have a look and I'll tell you what I notice at least. And so when he came in, he was going to be attending a meeting for the team, and the meeting was going for 4 hours. And he said when he walked into the room, what he saw first of all was that in the room there was a long table. And he said what happened was the CEO sat down at the head of the table, and then all the other geographic heads of the regions sat around the table. He said along with that were some of the functional leaders like the head of legal, the head of HR, head of finance who were also there. And my friend said he went in and he sat down beside the CEO. And he said they'd proceeded to start working through their agenda, and on the agenda that day there were 7 items which they had to cover. And he said they started to debate these items. He said there was quite a bit of conflict. There were different viewpoints on how they should proceed, particularly around decision making. And so there was some good spirited perspectives from different people. But he said what happened was they worked through 4 of these agenda items, and then something strange happened. He said when they'd completed the 4th agenda item, the CEO just stood up and he walked away from the table. My friend sort of looks around, wonders what's happening. But then everyone else stands up and they walk away from the table as well. And so my friend now is really confused because no one said anything, and they walk over to this other table, a round table which is in the room. He says then people start to sit down around this table, first the CEO, then the others. And without sort of missing a beat or discussing what just happened, they just start talking again. And so my consulting friend, he's really wondering what's happening, but he doesn't want to say anything out loud and look stupid. And so they continue to work through the next 3 agenda items until they've covered all 7. And then they have a break and they stand up and they're sort of standing around having a cup of coffee. And my friend goes up to the CEO and says, listen, I don't want to sound stupid, but why did we all stand up and change tables halfway through the meeting? And the CEO goes, oh, look, I'm sorry, I should have said something, I just forgotten. He says, here's what we've learnt through working together as a team. He said, there are some items in which I need the people in the room to really talk from their own perspective about what they need for their region or for their function. So I want them to be able to argue and debate and point out their own needs. And he said that's what we call long table thinking. And so those were the first 4 items were real long table thinking items. You know, tell me what's happening in the Northwest District. What do you need? But he said when you're in a leadership team, there are some items where you need to be able to take off your geographic hat and put on the hat which pertains to the whole business. Not just what you need, but what's best for the whole business. And he says we call that long table thinking. He said it might sound a bit silly, but what we've realised is it actually helps to physically separate the agenda items which call for long table thinking or round table thinking. And my consulting friend was, oh, okay, that sort of makes sense. And the CEO explains that we've also learned something else. We've learned that not everyone is capable of doing both long table thinking and round table thinking. Some people are great at arguing for their cause and what they want, but they can't take off that hat and put on the round table hat where they think from the perspective of the whole. And he says, so what we've learned the hard way is that if you want to be in the leadership team, you need to be able to do both. If you're only able to do long table thinking, it doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't mean we don't like you, It just means you can't be part of a leadership team because you need to be able to think both ways. And so the interesting thing for a lot of organizations is that people who are able to think both and, it's quite an advanced stage of thinking. You know, it's been talked around, can you hold opposing ideas in your mind at the same time, both the part and the whole, and realize they're both important and they're both right? And so this pertains to culture because as organizations and individuals go through different stages of development, the ability to think both and, or to think in terms of polarities, becomes increasingly important. Do you have the skills and the abilities to think both and? Some people do it very naturally, and some people it's a skill that needs to be developed.